Hey guys, Craig here and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Craig and on this channel we cover an array of true crime cases. So if that's your kind of thing, please like this video and subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to be notified every time I upload a new video. As always, before I get into today's case, I just want to say a wee disclaimer. These videos are made for educational purposes only and to create a talking point around a certain topic or subject. I never mean any disrespect to any of the victims or their families. So now that we have that out of the way, let's get into the fraudster that is Belle Gibson. Gibson, an Australian woman in her early 20s, would become an Instagram influencer and a social media rising star, and the creator of the world's first lifestyle app, The Whole Pantry. She would win awards and inspire others with her tales of overcoming cancer through a holistic regime. She would hold fundraisers for the 20 charities that she claimed to support. Belle Gibson would experience a meteoric rise to fame and wealth until she was discovered to be a fraud and her house of cards would come crashing down. Her fall from grace would be as rapid as her rise, but with real life consequences for real life victims. This is the story of how Belle Gibson fooled the world until she was exposed as a fraud and a liar. One of the few nice things that can be said of social media is its ability to stay connected with friends and loved ones, especially when they are faced with trying life circumstances, such as the death of someone close to them or receiving a difficult medical diagnosis. Social media allows us to remain in contact, offer support and condolences, and even provide financial support to those in need who maybe experience one of life's many bumps in the road. Belle Gibson was someone that had experienced a lot of bumps in the road in her young life. It didn't seem fair that someone who was so positive and committed to helping others would be struck down in such a cruel way. Belle Gibson was a young Australian who received a cancer diagnosis in 2009. When she was just 18 years old. Brain cancer, no less. A very aggressive and unresponsive strain of the disease. But through it all, even as she experienced the pain, the trauma, and the uncertainty of such a cruel diagnosis, she would retain her sunny smile and her warm encouragement of others who were also struggling with the disease. Belle Gibson was a champion of overcoming cancer. Belle received her cancer diagnosis in 2009 from a specialist named Dr. Mark Johns at the Peter MacCallum Cancer Centre in Melbourne. He was a neurologist. She claimed her prognosis was dire and that death was imminent. She says she was given just 4 months to live. She would share all of her experiences as a cancer survivor in multiple online forums, most notably Instagram, where she posted photos of herself and her recommendations for living a healthy lifestyle that Belle claimed was helping her to beat the brain cancer that she had been diagnosed with. In 2010, Belle would give birth to her son, Oliver, which in itself was a medical miracle for someone so sick to carry a healthy baby to term. She often shared the heartache of the prospect of the baby losing its mother to cancer at such a young age. Belle told the world that while she had initially followed her doctor's advice to undergo chemotherapy and radiation for 8 weeks following her diagnosis, she eventually quit all of those painful, difficult treatments in favour for trying a more healthy and holistic approach to beating the disease. She described how she had cured herself of cancer and that she had harnessed the power of natural fruit and vegetables, craniosacral therapy, and colonic irrigations. A controversial practice called Gerson's therapy, which claimed to heal the body of any ailments through totally committing to a plant-based diet. Belle claimed that her cancer was in remission, with no growth or spread of the disease, due solely to her holistic practices and wholesome lifestyle changes. And many sick people, believed her. She amassed thousands of followers on social media, many of whom themselves were cancer patients, and some were so desperate that they followed Belle's advice. After all, she had beaten cancer by following this regime, so why couldn't they also experience the same benefits? Many of these same people quit more traditional treatments involving chemotherapy and radiation in favour of a more plant-based, smoothie recipe-based diet championed by Belle. After all, she was a cancer survivor, and some of these people would actually die because of it. By 2013, Belle Gibson was an Instagram influencer and a social media maven. She described in detail the diet that she adhered to, along with the many benefits of oxygen therapy, craniosacral treatments, which claimed to release tension held deep within the body to relieve pain and cure illness, in addition to the other holistic measures of which she was already a practitioner. Belle Gibson shared her story with her many followers, including her belief that the Gardasil vaccine against cervical cancer in women is what caused her own cancer diagnosis. In fact, she believed that all vaccines were dangerous, and that the Australian government's insistence on vaccinating your child was wrong, and worse, that it may cause ailments, including cancer. Belle became a popular presence on the social media sites for anti-vaxxers. In August of 2013, Belle created the first health and wellness lifestyle app called The Whole Pantry, which featured her detailed regime for healthy eating. To achieve total healing and wellness, this included recipes and food guides. It sold in the iTunes App Store for $3.79. And in the first month alone, it garnered 200,000 downloads. It was voted Apple's best food and drink app of 2013. After receiving that honour, the app would see another spike in sales, another 100,000 downloads. So Belle's star was definitely on the rise. Belle promised to donate 1/3 of the proceeds from the Whole Pantry app to charity, and she listed 6 specific charities that would be in receipts of her goodwill in charitable endeavours. Those charities included things like the Asylum Seekers Resource Centre and building schools in Africa, and she even fundraised for a Pacific kid, 7-year-old Joshua Schwartz, who was struggling with his own brain cancer diagnosis and treatment at the time. Belle Gibson was interviewed for national newspapers, magazines and online media outlets, and she quickly became known as an inspiration for someone who had overcome adversity, and who had achieved victory through healthy living. Before the end of the year, Belle was offered a book deal with Penguin Publishers, who created the Whole Pantry Cookbook, which was published in 2014. And it was quickly acquired by publishing giants, and it was distributed for sale in the United States and Europe. In the book's preface section, Belle recounted her cancer diagnosis, which she was currently in remission for, and how she had overcome the disease through a strict adherence to the recipes that would follow. She even dedicated this book to the young Joshua Schwartz. In November of 2014, Apple announced that the Whole Pantry app would be pre-installed on every Apple Watch beginning in April of the upcoming year. Cosmopolitan magazine even awarded Belle Gibson its Fun Fearless Female Award in the social media category. It was estimated that the sales of the book garnered Belle Gibson in excess of $1 million. In 2013 and into 2014, Belle announced that she was working with over 20 different charities, including those that championed mental health, and support for children with cancer. So after Belle returned from a publicity tour of the USA, Belle told her followers that she was feeling very ill. Facebook friends and folks who had read the prefix of her book, in which she claimed to be in remission, were confused. Was she in remission, or was she not? Had the recipes helped, or didn't they? Belle explained to the world that she was receiving treatment from someone that she only referred to as Dr. Phil, no surname. Belle told her Facebook followers that the cancer had returned with a vengeance, and the cancer was now in her brain and was affecting her spleen, her blood, and her uterus. She told a few media outlets that the cancer had also spread to her kidneys and liver. Her prognosis was dire, and she only had months to live before the cancer would claim her life. How do you say goodbye to your own child? She wrote in one touching blog post, where Belle described the pain of facing death and leaving behind her young son, just 4 years old, motherless. The community riled and offered sympathy and financial support to help the young mother through this ungodly time. Yet photographs of Belle that she would post continuously throughout this period did not show a sick woman. All of her pictures showed an apple-cheeked young woman who looked more like an advertisement for a surfing brand than a woman that was sick with a cancer-ravaged body. Despite this, no one would investigate Belle's many claims, and her word was taken at face value. After all, how do you call out someone or ask them to verify their diagnosis? I mean, that just wouldn't be politically correct. Elle magazine featured Belle Gibson in a full-length article, highlighting her as an inspiration and a survivor, and that her claims of being cured through a lifestyle changes were phenomenal. It was this article that would ultimately out Belle Gibson as a fraud and a swindler. Shortly after the publication of the article featuring Belle's story, they received an email from someone claiming to know Belle in real life. The email reads, "It has come to my attention that you have published a story about a girl that I have known my whole life. Her name is Belle Gibson, creator of the Whole Pantry app and book, and so-called cancer patient. Unfortunately, there are a few things that you might need to know before you consider publishing more about this woman. She is a compulsive liar. In fact, she got so tangled in her own web of lies living in Brisbane that she had to move to Melbourne to start a new life of lies. The cancer lie this time. For one, this woman isn't 26 years old. She was born in 1991. Secondly, she never, nor does she have, any form of cancer. Where is the proof? I've known Belle since her childhood and I'm close with her mother, and she has always had a problem with fabricating stories from nothing on a regular basis. It's one thing to act as if you can cure cancer by eating organically, but giving false hope to people who are actually fighting cancer is nothing short of evil. You must be aware of this before you publish stories about this woman. She is selling her fake sob story in order to profit from her app and book sales. She is a master manipulator. The email was then signed, sick of seeing her lies published. The editors of Elle magazine tried to verify the claims made in the email, but based on the blog post that they reviewed, they were unable to either confirm or deny the claims that Belle Gibson was a liar or a fraud. They says that they dismissed the email as coming from a less than credible source, because who would lie about having cancer? But where Elle would fail, a pair of sharp-eyed investigative journalists would succeed. In early 2013, journalists Bo Donnelly and Nick Toscano, reporters of the Melbourne Age newspaper, had been looking into Gibson's claims after they received a tip from someone within the wellness community who had become friends with Gibson and was suspicious about her claims. The tipster went as far as to claim that Belle was faking her many diagnoses. So Donnelly and Toscano got to work, digging through Belle Gibson's past. They watched or read transcripts of every interview that she gave over the past few years, and they went through every blog post, media comment and news article connected to Belle, looking for clues. They were suspicious. They says that she was too vague and too scripted when talking about her illness. So they compiled everything Belle had said about her cancer and solicited the opinion of doctors who specialised in the diagnosis and treatment of the disease. The doctors all agreed that Belle Gibson's claims relating to her having cancer were totally implausible. Donnelly and Toscano interviewed people who were close friends of Belle to see if any one of them had either observed Belle when she was ill or witnessed her involved in any kind of medical treatment, or even if they had known her to visit a doctor or medical treatment centre. But none of them had. Not a single one. And there weren't any photos of Belle looking ill at any point in her life. And trust me, Belle posted a lot of photos. The two journalists read one post from Belle where she describes receiving her first diagnosis of the brain cancer by Dr. Mark Johns within the Peter MacCallum Cancer Institute. That institute, however, did not have a doctor by that name on its staff, nor had they ever. There was actually no doctor on any medical register kept by the government. He didn't exist. He never did. There was simply no evidence that Belle Gibson had cancer. But without substantial proof that Belle Gibson had lied about her medical condition and treatments, it would be unethical to publish that story in the newspaper and to put the publication at risk of legal action. So the duo decided to look into Belle's other claims, those involving her charitable donations, causes that she seemed to promote at every chance. So the pair contacted the Asylum Seeker and the One Girl charities, among others, and none of them, not a single one, could find any evidence that Belle Gibson or the Whole Pantry brand had made any charitable donations, despite Belle's repeated fundraising events, supposedly on their behalf. They all says that they were unaware that Belle Gibson was using their name and that she had promised to overturn portions of the donations to them. They hadn't received a dime. Another fact is that neither Belle Gibson nor her company, the Whole Pantry, were registered as fundraisers with the government, and this is required by the Australian law. So the two journalists decided that it was time to see what Belle Gibson had to say for herself. They especially wanted to know about the lack of payment to the charities that she claimed to be funding. On March 15th, 2015, they tried phoning her but discovered that she had turned her phone off. So instead, they emailed Belle asking 21 specific questions. Things like the name of her doctors, where she had received medical treatment, and what she had done with the donations she had collected if she hadn't passed them on to the charities that she was supporting. Instead of responding to these questions that were posed, Belle got busy doing damage control. According to their book about the case, The Girl Who Fooled the World, the two investigators outlined Belle's actions in the hours after pressing send on their email at 3:20 p.m. The first call that Belle made was to the Asylum Seeker's Director of Fundraising at 3:30 p.m. and she spoke with him on the phone for 15 minutes, promising to pay them £20,000 at 4 p.m. She then transferred $1,000 to the One Girl charity, who had been trying to get their donations owed to them for over a year. Gibson cited start-up woes and growing pains for the reason for the lack of payment. It was a simple mix-up that she would correct. She then sent a screenshot of the $1,000 donation to the CEO of the organisation. Belle Gibson also sent emails to all the other charities that she was supporting, promising that the payment was coming. Gibson then responded to the investigators' email in the middle of the night, but instead of providing answers to the specific questions they posed, Gibson cited cash flow problems, mismanagement, and inadequate employees as the reason for the mix-up regarding the donations owed. She then made sure to tell them about the $1,000 donation to the One Girl charity, as proof that she intended to honour all of her commitments. She, however, left out the fact that she had made the donation earlier that day, after promising it over 15 months ago, and only after receiving their email that clued her into the fact that someone was onto her. On March 8th, 2015, the two investigative journalists would publish the story of Belle Gibson's fraud towards 5 charities that she had canned out of donations during 2 separate fundraising events. Money that she claimed to be collecting on their behalf but never passed on to them. So as you can imagine, the story was soon picked up by the major news outlet across Australia, and then the world. Belle's fall from grace would be as rapid as her rise to fame. So let's talk about the real Belle Gibson. Belle was born Annabelle Natalie Gibson in 1991 in Tasmania to her mother Natalie. Belle's mother reported that she was addicted to the computer from a young age and would fall asleep with the device each evening. Natalie didn't think her online obsession was very healthy and tried to limit the amount of time that Belle was spending online. This is what made Belle leave home at the tender age of 12. She was still in primary school and moved in with a much older man, whom her brother says was in his 60s. Belle dropped out of high school at 16 and went to work for a catering company in Brisbane, where co-workers remembered her as a lost soul and a bit disturbed. Belle didn't appear to have any friends or family outside of her casual relationships with co-workers, who she clung onto in a needy manner, pushing many of them further away. She was known for telling what they generously referred to as vivid stories that nobody quite believed, but no one had the heart to call her out on her bullshit. She was known as a liar. It was around this time that Belle became immersed in the skateboarding scene in Perth, Australia. And true to form, she became heavily involved in the online skating world, posting blogs and commenting on many skating forums, sometimes many a day, which exaggerated her real-life events. For example, Belle had a mild heart condition as a child, but in her blog post, this minor ailment became a life-threatening condition that caused her to die on the operating table for 3 minutes. Belle wrote about having extensive bruising left on her chest by the electric paddles used by the surgeons to shock her back to life. She referred to the event, and by an extension herself, as a miracle. Belle became addicted to the attention and sympathy that she received from others who were empathetic to her many different ailments. After being vaccinated with the Gardasil inoculation against cervical cancer, Belle reported that she became deathly ill, going so far as to say that she suffered a stroke. Then she claimed that she was diagnosed with the brain cancer, and she blamed that on the vaccine too. It wasn't long before the cancer had spread to other areas of her body, including her uterus, her ovaries, her blood, her liver, her kidneys, and her spleen. It should be noted that there's absolutely no evidence that the vaccine causes any type of cancer. Perhaps not so coincidentally, at the same time that she began posting about her health problems, Belle was employed at the call centre for a private health insurance company. In this position, Belle would speak with patients about their own health issues, including their symptoms, prognosis, treatments, and medical regimes. This is undoubtedly where she got most of the information that she sprinkled throughout her blog posts and her own fabricated health complaints. Aside from the minor heart condition that Belle had since childhood, None of her ailments were true. Belle never had brain cancer or any other form of cancer. Belle was addicted to the attention and the notoriety that she garnered in the online world by telling tales of woe and how she had courageously fought cancer. One psychologist would later say that the evidence presented to him was that of Munchausen's by internet, a term to describe the new online phenomenon. Munchausen's syndrome is the official term for someone who fabricates illness and medical conditions in themselves to achieve secondary gain from others, such as attention, sympathy, or a tangible item such as money, or as an excuse to avoid unpleasant tasks like work. By her late teen years, Belle was a master of the Munchausen's game. So the following day, another newspaper, The Australian, published an interview with Belle Gibson, in which she claimed that the spread of her cancer to her liver, her uterus, her blood, and her spleen may have been misdiagnosed. She told the paper that she felt like she had been led astray by a shady medical doctor, and that she felt confused and borderline humiliated. Other news outlets soon began publishing interviews with former friends and acquaintances and even medical doctors, all who would cast a doubt on her claims of ever having cancer. Even her initial diagnosis of brain cancer, which Belle referred to as occurring in stages instead of grades, as was the correct medical term used to describe the prognosis of this disease. As the world began digging into Belle Gibson's past, her former misdeeds and many fabrications were soon uncovered. As you know, nothing on the internet ever truly goes away. For the many people with cancer who followed Belle Gibson and took her advice seriously, they couldn't escape their diagnosis. They felt duped and foolish and taken advantage of. Many of them lost hope and actually died. Kylie Willie, a 43-year-old woman and mother who was fighting lymphoma, a serious form of cancer, was laying in a hospital bed receiving chemotherapy treatments when she happened to stumble upon Belle's story and started following her online. Kylie was inspired to stop her chemotherapy treatment and give Belle's healthy lifestyle recommendations a go instead. It was a decision that almost cost the mother her life. After finding out about Belle, she returned to her traditional cancer treatments, which put her into remission. But she was angry and felt very preyed upon. The damage done by Belle Gibson's lies was real and would have worldwide reaching effects. There was 7-year-old Joshua Swartz, who was battling his own brain cancer, which turned out to be inoperable. Belle even bonded with his mother Penny on social media and arranged for her son and Joshua to get together for a play date. The Swartz family was totally unaware that Belle claimed to be fundraising on their behalf, and told news media outlets that they never received any money from Belle or her company. In fact, Penny came to believe that Belle Gibson was actually seeking insider knowledge about Joshua's brain cancer, so that she could speak knowledgeably about it in her own posts and interviews. The Swartz had to take down Joshua's own fundraising account when they became overwhelmed with online trolls calling her son a fake fraud cancer patient because of his whole association with Belle. Penny explained that the family was financing 100% of Joshua's treatment and that the loss of donations would directly affect his health and ultimately his lifespan. Joshua sadly lost his battle with cancer on January 21st, 2017. Belle Gibson stayed out of the public eye for several months following this, hoping that the fury would die down, but it didn't. Belle would then take to social media ranting and raving about people who had betrayed her trust. At this time, Apple, who had neglected to verify Belle Gibson's claims, pulled her whole Pantry app a week later, as did Penguin Publishers with her book. saying that verifying health conditions isn't a requirement for a cookbook. In April of 2015, Belle would emerge from her self-imposed exile to give an interview with the Australian Women's Weekly magazine. She admitted to lying, saying none of it was true. "I'm still jumping between what I think is true and what is reality." She continued to blame Dr. Mark Johns for what she called a misdiagnosis, despite the investigative journalists uncovering that there was no doctor by that name that existed in Australia. Belle also blamed her mother's mistreatment of her in childhood for her many lies. Her mother Natalie would give her own interview to the press, clarifying that she had paid for Belle's extravagant lifestyle. Belle's brother also spoke out about his sister's lies, saying that she was an attention whore and had been her whole life. During one of Belle Gibson's final interviews, she once again sought sympathy for the hardship that she was currently experiencing, apparently overlooking the fact that she had brought all of this upon herself. She said early in the interview that she wanted to apologise, but she seemed to have gotten distracted by her own misfortunes and the world of hate that she had been garnered to online. Belle would actually go on to say, "I have been ruined financially and personally. My business is in liquidation and I've had to sell my home and return my rental car. I have lost all of my friends and my home address has been leaked. I have been getting death threats. The backlash is beyond horrible. For the past 2 years, I've worked every single day, living and raising up an online community to help support one another. I understand the suspicion and the confusion, but they also need to draw a line in the sand where they still treat someone with some level of respect and humility. But I have not been receiving that." Belle Gibson can't seem to stop playing the victim, even when she's supposed to be apologising. The story of Belle Gibson is a cautionary tale that people, especially those who claim to have the answers, are not always who they seem. And we owe it to ourselves to view extraordinary claims with extraordinary proof. So guys, that was the fraudster that is Belle Gibson. Now normally when I make these videos I try to stay pretty impartial and just tell the story. But this woman boils my blood. She's an absolute idiot and in my opinion she deserves no sympathy. But let me know in the comment section below what your thoughts are on Belle Gibson. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And hit that bell icon so that you never miss another upload. And I will see you all next time. Take care. Bye.